as we have discussed the detailed analysis of the key one place by the faculty into marks. What to do, what not to do, what to revise, what presentation is scheduled 2025 and the form is present but it is in all the stages multiple times, so they know what to do, what not to do, what to revise, what not to revise, and what to incorporate and what not to incorporate. So that is the dimension which is seen to be existing with respect to this particular program. And when we look at the orientation for this program, we see hello students. So finally the wait is over. Prelims 2025 has been done on 25th May 2025, and as you know that most of you will be waiting for the answer key, and most of you would be waiting to start your mains preparation. Now, with the consideration and with the observations, I would say that immediately start your mains preparation irrespective of the marks that you are getting. That is the opening remark that I would make before I get into the analysis of the key for the GS1 of 2025 prelims. I would tell you straight away start your mains preparation, because if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it is definitely like a fixed deposit for your future. So in that context, I would definitely tell you that start your mains preparation as soon as possible. Now with that opening remark, coming to the basic analysis before I get into the key of the paper, I would say that most of it would appear as if it is a moderate paper, right? The first impression, appearance is moderate. But what is the actual understanding by looking at the paper and by talking to the aspirants? It is definitely a tough paper. And I would like to add one word to this tough paper. I would say it is more of a tricky paper. Why I would say it is tricky? It fundamentally questioned every aspect of your knowledge. And more or less, I would say it is more of a balanced nature of its questioning which made it actually tricky, which actually made it tough. When I say balanced nature, once upon a time, or at least till last year, we used to have some disproportionate distribution of marks with respect to certain subjects. Last year, like geography and polity dominated. Before that, we had environment dominating. Before that, we had agriculture dominating. We had some disproportionate distribution of marks with respect to the subjects in the erstwhile years of questioning. But this year, it was more of a balanced paper, which actually made it tough, which actually made it tricky. Now, looking at the subject distribution of the number of questions here, on an average, economy had 15 questions. Environment and ecology had 14 questions. Geography again had 14 questions. History this year was a surprise element where it was again a pending aspect, as I was indicating in the HAR classes, that this year we are going to have a comeback of modern history and current affairs, and you could see that in the question paper. History we had 16 questions. Then on an average, I would say the polity and the governance part, we had 15 questions. Then science and technology. Science and technology, again we had 14 questions. And some miscellaneous aspects that would include your international relations had 12 questions. So if you look at the distribution, none of the subject had more questions, none of the subject had less questions. And this is one side of it, and I would say it is more of a balanced paper, which actually made it tough and tricky. But some definite disappointments when it comes to the paper here could be that the medieval India was completely neglected to a larger extent. And generally, the conventional environment has been neglected to a larger extent. Because when you look at the nature of questioning an environment, some question like tarantula, or some questions like Article 6. So now in this context, it is more of applied aspect rather than conventional environment. So conventional environment had taken a backseat in the paper. So definitely these are some of the aspects which you see with respect to this question paper. So my understanding and the observation here is it is not easy, it is not moderate, I would say it is tough and tricky. Now with that basic opening remark, I would anyway discuss about certain analysis of the cutoff towards the end of the key, and once we discuss the answers, right? Now getting into the answer key here, when you look at the first question, it is talking about the types of vehicles and alternative powertrain vehicles. Now do not worry about what is being marked in the black here, because that's a scanned question paper. I would rather mark it and tell the answer also next to the question. Now it is talking about alternative vehicles, and where with the basic observation you would see that all the three questions or all the three statements are correct in this particular question. So answer for this particular question, types of vehicles and alternative powertrain vehicles, is C, right? The approach would be, you would have different sets. So here the approach would be, I would be telling the keyword and the respective option for that, such that it is easy for you to trace it in your question paper. Now getting on to the next question, that's again with respect to UAVs, that is nothing but your drones. When you look at your UAVs, here you would see that definitely an elimination technique would come into the picture, as it was discussed in HAR. You would see that definitely this is more of an extreme statement. And here you would see that none of these statements are correct. So answer for this UAV's question, it is D. Definitely you would have some exception. That is what is one kind of discussion that we had when I was discussing about elimination techniques and PYQs. Now looking at this particular question with respect to electric vehicles and the respective battery, the battery technology here, and they are categorically asking about the battery cathodes. And when you look at this battery cathodes, in this, if you observe, you definitely will be able to understand in the conventional aspect we have lithium. Right? We keep discussing about lithium, we keep discussing about we are unable to meet the target of electric vehicles because shortage of charging infrastructure, because shortage of lithium. So in that context, lithium is definitely known. But here you would have to understand that 1 and 4 are mutually consistent because they are part of the critical minerals which have been declared. And you see India has declared 30 critical minerals, and in that cobalt and nickel happens to go, and the context for that was with respect to application in electric vehicles. So in this context, the answer for 3 is only 3. That is cobalt, lithium and nickel. It is not graphite. Next. Now when we look at how many of them contain plastic. Now here plastic could be an elastomer, plastic could be a fibrous substance, plastic could be an amorphous substance, plastic could be a polymeric substance. So in general, what do we observe is plastic is what we use for layman, but whereas we have polymer, which is an umbrella term which is seen here, and you see that plastic being present in cigarette butts, eyeglass lens and car tires. Car tires we use with respect to the elastomers. In eyeglass lens we have something called as PMMA, and in the cigarette butts also we have certain kinds of elastomers being used here. So we see that all the 3 would have the plastic being present. So the answer for 4 is C. That is with respect to plastic, answer for that is all the 3 are correct. Next. Now which of the following with respect to the coal gasification technology? Now coal gasification technology can be used in the production of how many of them? Right? Now definitely, now one tendency of UPSC with respect to providing an element of possibility by giving can be. Now sometimes it could be tricky. Now here we are not very sure with respect to what is the consideration of UPSC, but technically if you look at the content, if you look at the subject aspect, and if you look at the technicalities of it, it is only ethanol and urea. So restricting it to the subject, leaving the consideration of UPSC with respect to providing a possibility in the question, the answer for this question could be B, that is only 2 with respect to the coal gasification technology, right? Because you never know again if UPSC considering that can be and it goes for all the 3, we never know that possibility, but technically and purely subject oriented, if I have to tell you, it is ethanol and urea. So answer for this is only 2. Next. Now here when we look at this question with respect to CL20, HMX, LLM 105. Now here there are different ways of solving it because definitely it is not in the conventional knowledge. One aspect is the fuel that is used in the missiles and the rockets. It is mostly the same. It is mostly the same. And most of you would have also heard about something called as RDX, right? Which is very similar to HMX, right? RDX generally we hear in the context of what? We hear in the context of explosive. So answer for this CL20, HMX and LLM 105, it is option B, that is related to the explosives in the military weapon. Next. Now with respect to Majorana 1 chip. Now here you observe this pattern of the statements here, and when you look at the second statement, here we have a fact which is being given by UPSC. And most of the times as we discussed in the class with respect to the elimination techniques, we see that there is a factual tweaking which is generally done by UPSC. It is not Amazon, but it is the Microsoft which has built this particular chip, and 1 and 3 are correct. So you eliminate second statement, you automatically arrive at the answer. So the answer for this is C, which is 1 and 3 alone. That is with respect to Majorana chip, right? Then when you look at this monoclonal antibodies, when we look at monoclonal antibodies, we know that it is generally man-made and it definitely has a kind of immunological response that is seen, and it is generally used for treating the viral diseases. And this monoclonal antibodies became very, very famous when during the context of COVID-19 treatment. So definitely COVID-19 was viral disease, and here treating viral infections like Nipah. So answer here is all the three statements are right with respect to monoclonal antibodies. So option here is with respect to D. Next. Now when we look at again this particular question, they are asking again, we see that there is an element of extremity which is existing in the option pattern. Just like the previous where we discussed about all, here they are saying no. And definitely we know that nothing in this world is so extreme here. So definitely we have discussed and we have seen that all the three statements are incorrect. So answer for this is none. None of the states, so answer for this is none, which is D. Right? Next. Coming to the 10th question. This is a question on activated carbon. And we see that the carbons definitely in news this year. And it could also be considered as a question of science and technology. When you look at this, you will have to see that statement 2 and statement 3 are right. Yes, statement 2 is right, statement 3 is right. And you all understand that both this statement 2 and statement 3 an explanation for statement 1. That is, categorically for activated carbon, the answer is option A. That is, both the statement 2 and statement 3 are correct, and both of them explain the statement 1. Next. When we look at this particular question with respect to carbon emissions, now here it is talking about an approximation with respect to more than 5%, and this is in the context of the cement industry. And we know that because of the raw material usage and because of the fossil fuel dependence with respect to the cement, it is one of the leading polluting industries which are existing. And keeping that, we see statement 2 is right because of the raw material base that it is talking about. Statement 3 is right, where it is talking about limestone is converted into lime during clinker production for cement manufacturing. Now here you see that both the statements are correct, and it is with respect to only one of the statement is seen to be explaining the reason for statement 1. Answer for 11 is B. Answer for 11, it is B, where we observe that only one of these statements are justifying the respective aspects there, right? So that is one thing that you'll have to remember. Next. With respect to COP28, here, now when we look at COP28, it is talking about Declaration on Climate and Health. One thing that we have seen, as it is declaration, it is definitely not binding in nature. As it is not binding, that meant 2 is incorrect. Now when statement 2 is incorrect, look, 3 is decarbonized, the resilience of it may be compromised, yes. That is why we refrained from signing it. So that means only one of the statement 2 and 3 is right, and that explains the statement 1. So with respect to COP28, the answer for this is C. Answer for this COP28 is C. Next. With respect to the Earth's rotation, because there were a number of reports and number of scientific studies which were going on with respect to Milankovitch cycles, and not only Milankovitch cycles but also with respect to the changing nature of the rotation and the tilting axis and with respect to the eccentricity of the earth, and with respect to the obliquity of the earth's movement. So all of these dimensions were in news, and all of those, a lot of reports were going on. And in that context, they have asked that statement 2 talks about solar flares, and statement 3 talks about the polar ice melts. Now here, when I talk about the earth's rotation and axis, it is more of a physical phenomena. And whereas when you look at solar flares, it is more of a phenomena, and whereas when we look at the third statement that is talking about the melting of ice and resulting in more water, that is talking about the physical aspect. Now that means statement 2 is also right, statement 3 is also right, but there is only one statement which is explaining the statement 1. So answer for this particular question is, it is B. Answer for this particular question is B. It is that statement 3 is explaining the statement 1, not statement 2. But statement 2 and statement 3, both of them are right, because solar flares are magnetic ejections which are bombarding the earth on one side. That is where we see something called a South Atlantic anomaly as a phenomena, because of this constant bombarding of the solar flares and the solar magnetic ejections on one side of the earth. So that can be observed there. So 13 answer is with respect to this particular question, it is B. Now when you look at 14th question, again, now here when we look at 14th question, Article 6, very much in news. The reason for Article 6 to be very much in news, because we see in COP28, we had finalized the loss and damage fund. And not only that, Article 6 is categorically known with respect to the climate financing aspects. And not only climate financing aspects, but also the carbon markets aspect. So in that context, this particular question was picked up, because we know in Baku, that is COP29, we see the operationalization of the loss and damage fund which came into the picture. And in that context, you see statement 2, Article 6 of the Paris Agreement sets out the principles of carbon markets. Yes. Article 6 intends to promote inter-country non-market to reach their climate targets. So it is talking about both of these dimensions, talking about the financial aspect, the market aspect, and the non-market aspect. So statement 2 and statement 3 are right, and both are explaining the statement 1. So answer for this Article 6 wala question is option A. Next. Now this particular question again, Nature Solution Finance Hub for Asia and Pacific. Now I told you etymological approach for this Asia, it should have been from either option A or option B. Asian Development Bank and Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. Now here, how are you going to deduce from this? It's very simple. It is talking about Asia and Pacific, and in ADB we have those countries which are part of this Pacific largely. And ADB has more of a Asia Pacific membership which is observed. So in that context, so answer for this, even if you are not aware and even if you didn't know this particular question, you could have solved this by using this etymological and the common word approach which we keep discussing as part of the class. And we see the answer for 15 is A, that is Nature Solution Finance Hub for Asia and Pacific. Next. With respect to direct air capture, now here again it's more of an emerging technology which is seen, and it is asking about the categorical application with respect to the direct air capture. Now in this you see that it can be used as for carbon sequestration, and if it can be used for carbon sequestration, definitely it can be a valuable approach for plastic production, because most of your plastic is what? Most of your plastic is the hydrocarbons. And when we look at in aviation, it can be a source of carbon for combining with hydrogen to create low fuel. Again, very consistent, and all the three statements are mutually consistent. So answer for this is 1, 2 and 3. That means all the three statements are right. So answer for the direct air capture is option C. Next. Now again, a beautiful question, I would say, very much in news. Constantly in news, repeatedly in news, because of the dwindling population. Now when we look at this peacock tarantula or gutti tarantula, now those people from Andhra Pradesh and especially from the regions of Rayalaseema would know that Gutti is a place in Anantapur district. Now, in that context, it definitely shows that it is something which is very related to the Indian species here. Now, you look at this, it's an omnivorous crustacean. Now, if you know that tarantula is nothing but spider, if you know that tarantula is nothing but spider, definitely you could eliminate the first statement, it is not a crustacean. And when you know that it is not a crustacean, when you are eliminating the first statement, you are left with the second and the third statement. And here you see, its natural habitat in India is only limited to some forest areas. So that means it has an habitat with respect to the forest areas. And here, in its natural habitat, it is an arboreal species. Now, if it is restricted or if it is present in forest area, it is arboreal species. That is one derivative that you can see, because you see there are two kinds of species. One is either the terrestrial species, or the other is either with respect to the arboreal species. So, if both the statements are mutually consistent, if you don't want to use this particular logic in this particular question, the peacock tarantula is also otherwise called as the arboreal tarantula. Now, when we are calling it as arboreal tarantula, it fundamentally means it's a species which is arboreal in nature. So, answer for this 17 is D, that is the statement 2 and the statement 3 are right statements. Next. Now, when you look at the 18th question, now it is asking about the carbon emissions and the per capita understanding. And when we look at this carbon emissions, that is why I told you that environment was more applicative in nature. The conventional environment, the technical environment, the knowledge-based environment, the static environment has taken a backseat in the context of this particular questioning. Mostly it is climate related. Carbon related questioning which is seen to be happening here. When we look at this carbon dioxide emissions in India is less than 0.5. It is not 0.5 because India happens to be the third largest. Right? And when we see that India happens to be the third largest, it is approximately 2 tons which is seen to be existing per capita, around 1.82. Now in that context, definitely not less than 0.5. So you eliminate first statement. When you eliminate first statement, you are left with the second and the third. The term carbon emissions from fuel, India ranks second in Asia Pacific, definitely 2 has to be right. And electricity and heat producers are the largest sources of carbon emissions. That's very logical, because when we look at the energy sector and the energy distribution of India, we observe that approximately around 60% of Indian energy is derived from the thermal. Or I can also say technically it is derived from the fossil fuel based energy. And when it is derived from fossil fuel based energy, we categorically know that the fossil fuels are more of an organic substances which have HCNOS composition. And in that context, definitely it would have one of the largest sources with respect to carbon emissions. So statement 2 and 3 are right. So answer for this carbon emissions wala question is option C, that is the statement 2 and statement 3 are right. Next. When you look at this particular question with respect to 19, now I would say this is more of a tough question, I would say, unless and until you are very aware about this particular nature. But otherwise, if you observe this question here, you see that straight away the Malabar spinach is what is marked incorrectly. And definitely again here with respect to the aspects of papaya. So in that context, if you observe this, the answer for this particular question, the 19th question, that is the plant and the description, it is 3 which are right. So option for this is B. Next. Again, a beautiful question depending upon the conceptual understanding. Rainforest produce more oxygen than that produced by oceans. Marine plankton and photosynthetic bacteria produce about 50% of world's oxygen. Now that means here you have to observe that if statement 1 is right, 2 has to be wrong. If 2 is right, 1 has to be wrong. That means 1 and 2 are mutually exclusive statements, so eliminate that, they can never go together. And here if you observe that well oxygenated surface water contains several folds higher oxygen than that in the atmospheric air. Right, again a comparative analysis with respect to the oxygen being present in the surface water and the aspects of atmospheric air. You definitely know in atmospheric air it is much larger, because what do we see in the context of water? We have something called as dissolved oxygen. In the context of air we have something called as free oxygen, and in this context definitely the third statement would go, which is incorrect. Now here in this context, as we have seen that the first either of these two have to exist, now the only remaining option that I have is what? It is option 2. That means that is the second statement is right, which says that the marine phytoplankton and photosynthetic bacteria produces about 50% of the world's oxygen, where we talk about the primary productivity concept in the context of the oceans. So here we see answer for this particular question is, it is B. That is only the second statement is right. Next, when we look at the 21st question, again with respect to Rajaram Mohan Roy, first statement is very simple. He possessed the great love towards the traditional systems of East, right? That means when you look at the establishment of Vedanta College. Now, in fact, establishment of Vedanta College is a kind of testimonial for the love that he has shown or the respect that he has shown with respect to the traditional philosophical systems. And he desired his countrymen to accept rational and scientific approach. Yes, right? So that means we see that could also be seen from the side of Sambandh Kaumudi, which has been written by Rajaram Mohan Roy. So in that context, you see first statement and second statement both are right. So answer for this Rajaram Mohan Roy question is, it is C. That means both the statements are right. Next, when we look at 22nd question, that is with respect to non-cooperation movement, a non-cooperation program. When we look at the non-cooperation program, we know boycott, strict non-violence. Now it was not retention of the titles, but it was giving away the titles. It was not the retention of the titles, but it was giving away the titles. And establishment of panchayats for settling disputes. In fact, we see the basis for this was fundamentally laid in the context of home rule movement. Right, home rule somewhere in 1916, 1914, that particular period, 14 to 16. And we see an extinction happening in the context of the non-cooperation. And we see that was laid in home rule. So we see first statement is right, second statement is right, and the fourth statement is right. So answer for this is 3. That means option C is the answer for the national cooperation program, which could be seen. Next. Now, again this paper showed the beauty, this paper showed the importance of PYQs. If you believe it or not, approximately 22 questions were based on PYQs. In the prelims of 2025, 22 questions were based on PYQs, that is the previous year questions. If you had decent understanding, if you had revised, if you had practiced the techniques, if you have managed the techniques, again you have to understand, my dear, that this paper also had elimination techniques. I would make a separate video with respect to the solving of 2025 using elimination tricks. But otherwise, in general, if you observe, PYQs are the king, and techniques and the strategy is what is dominating this particular paper. And the irrigation device Araghata, this was a question which was asked in 2016. Similar, same, in fact not similar, same question was asked. Only the options have changed here. It is nothing but Araghata is nothing but the Persian wheel. It is the Persian wheel, a kind of the irrigation system which is observed, and here it is large wheel with earthen pots. This is what is the answer. So answer for this particular question is option B, Araghata. Next, a straightforward question from 2016 paper. Again, a simple question with respect to Matta Vilasa, Vichitra Chitta. Right, this is with respect to Mahendra Varma 1. Matta Vilasa, Vichitra Chitta, this is with respect to Mahendravarma 1, Mandakapattu inscription. Right? So, Pallava Kingdom, Mandakapattu inscription, Mahendravarma 1, Vichitra Chitta, Chitrakara Puli, Matta Vilasa, Parihasam, all of these were referring with respect to Mahendravarma 1. Next, Faheen visited during the period of Chandragupta II. Right? Because when we look at the order of the Chinese travelers, we had Faheen, then we have Hunsang, then we have Ising. So we observe that during the period of Chandragupta II, we had Faheen who had visited. So answer for Faheen is option B. Next, when we look at 26th question. Now this is the beauty of UPSC, where it actually gives certain clues. Now it is talking about military campaign to Sri Vijaya, and it is talking about the Malayan Peninsula, it is talking about the Sumatra, it is talking about the Java. That means mostly an aspect with respect to East Asia. And it is our basic knowledge where we observe that most of the East Asian connect was with respect to the Chola Empire. And UPSC was kind enough to give you that particular kingdom where this king belonged to. We don't even have to understand, we don't even have to remember here that where UPSC said that Rajendra I belonged to Chola. If you knew either of them, you could answer this particular question. If you knew that East Asian connect was majorly with respect to Chola, or if you knew that Rajendra I happened to have this military campaign with respect to Sri Vijaya, you could have this answer. So answer for this particular question is option C. Next, when we look at 27th question, again with respect to the 16 Mahajanapadas, answer for this particular question, again a very straightforward factual based question. Answer for this is B. Only 2 are right, not all 4. Next, slightly tougher question, little uncertain, little out of the box. Now first Gandharva Mahavidyalaya by Vishnu Digambar, the answer for this is Lahore, right? If you knew it, you could answer. Otherwise, I would suggest to leave such questions here, because we can't even take a guess, right? Now, it could be such that either it is B or C, but otherwise here it is tough bit for us, either it is A or D. Now, answer for this is Lahore, that is option D. Next, again 29th question. It is talking about Pradeshika, Rajuka, Yukta. Now these were all part of district level administration. These were all part of the district level administration. They had revenue administration, they had judicial or the law and order aspects which they were supposed to take care, and that could be definitely seen that is in the context of district level administration. So answer for this Ashokan inscription and Rajuka, Pradeshika, it is B, the district level administration. Now when you look at non-cooperation movement here, anyway, the first statement is right, because we see it was talking about Swaraj, legitimate means and the peaceful means. But look at the second statement. It was to be implemented in stages with civil disobedience and non-payment of taxes for the next stage only if Swaraj did not come within a year and the government resorted to repression. Now looking at this option, the option has been very, very specific. And what it was talking about the backup plan that was put forth as part of the non-cooperation movement. In case if something happens and in case if they don't get Swaraj, there was a backup option of civil disobedience which was planned upfront in this context. And this is also a right statement. So answer for this particular question is both the statements are right, which is option C. So the answer for the non-cooperation movement wala question, it is option C. Next, coming to economy. Now this year economy was very conceptual, I would say. Very, very conceptual, and it definitely demanded an element of clarity that you would see either in the context of calculation of the primary deficit, calculation of the fiscal deficit. Extreme levels of clarity was demanded. And when you look at this with reference to investments, consider the following, and they are talking about AIF. They have never specified about AIF. You know AIF as part of the framework of SEBI, they have never specified of 1, 2 or 3. They did not specify any of this. They just spoke about AIF, alternative investment funds. And we see that these alternative investment funds are majorly with respect to the private aspect, where we see hedge funds and venture capital. So answer for this particular question, it is B. So it is only 2. That is, so answer for this particular AIF, that is alternative investment funds, it is option B. Next, when we look at 32nd question with respect to Reserve Bank of India. Now here again extremely conceptual, because we know that RBI, we would look at the liability side and we would look at the asset side, or I would say it was more of the income side. Now here it is definitely not lending to the private companies. It is not, it is the banker's bank, but it is not the bank to the private companies. So fourth statement can be eliminated. But when you eliminate the fourth statement, now we are still left with A and D, which is talking about 1 to 125. It is definitely not an aspect with respect to pension fund management. That has nothing to do with respect to the sources of income. Now here, you definitely know 1 and 2 are right. Now the question is with respect to fifth, that is printing and distributing currency notes. Now when we say printing and distributing currency notes, one aspect that of one consideration of this is with respect to printing and distributing currency notes. One aspect could be that it is an element of liability where RBI sees. Right, because the currency is seen to be liability on the side of RBI. Now if I am considering that it is a liability from the side of RBI, then I will have to go with option A, where I would say that only 1 and 2 are right. But if I say that the printing and distributing currency notes here, where I see it as part of the seigniorage, right, the seigniorage which is considered. Now in that context of seigniorage, it is all about the kind of profit that is derived from the side of the RBI. Now here, in the context of seigniorage, the fifth statement will also be right. So it is 1, 2 and 5. But considering the wording and verbatim of this particular question, right, because it could have both the probabilities, but considering the verbatim and looking at the nature of the question, my bid with respect to this particular question would be option A, that is statement 1 and 2 alone are correct. Statement 1 and 2 alone are correct. But in case if they are considering, if UPSC wish to consider the seigniorage aspect, but which I don't think by talking about, it is only talking about the income aspect. It is only talking about the income aspect. So in that context, the answer for this from our side would be with respect to option A, which is only 1 and 2 are right. Next. 33rd question with respect to the ministry and with respect to the organizations here. Now when you look at 33rd question, now 33rd question it is, this is incorrectly matched. Right, enforcement directorate is incorrectly matched, but whereas when we look at these two, both of them are correctly matched. So answer for this is B. Answer for this is B, that is the two statements are correct in this context. Next, when we look at this particular question, again very similar pattern could also be seen in 2021. Very similar pattern could also be seen in 2021. Very similar pattern could also be seen in 2022 with respect to the management of credit rating agencies, which was a question in 2022. A very similar pattern is seen here. Here also again it says that RBI mandates all the listed company with respect to BRSR. Here it is not RBI which is mandating these listed companies to provide these rules and framework, it is SEBI. Now when we look at this SEBI, that means statement 1 is incorrect. In India, a company submitting BR makes disclosure in report that are largely non-financial in nature. So in that context, what happens? The second statement is a correct statement. The second statement is a correct statement. So answer for this particular question is 2 only, that is option B, that is With respect to BRSR, answer is option B. Next question. It is talking about the taxation, it is talking about income tax and taxing of agricultural income. Now here if you look at the initial aspect, income from this, it is not exempted from any tax, right? May be exempted from income tax, but it is definitely not exempted from any tax. No, that is too much of an extremity that is seen, too much of an extreme statement that is seen. Statement 1 is incorrect. Now when you see that the statement 1 is incorrect, automatically what is happening? It is option D. Now just read for your reading sake in the context of the second statement, rural agricultural land is not considered as a capital asset under provision of Income Tax Act 1961. In this, statement 1 is very, very evident and statement 1 is incorrect in this context. So answer for this particular question is D. Statement 1 is not correct, but statement 2 is correct. Next. India has joined the Mineral Security Partnership as a member. Fair enough. India is resource rich in all the 30 critical minerals that it has identified. Now definitely you have to observe, my dear, although India has a base of over 80 plus minerals, but you have to observe that we definitely have import dependence. Now if I have to derive an exception to this particular statement of all the 30 critical minerals, I will say take an exception of lithium. Although we have reserves somewhere in Jammu and Kashmir, although we have reserves somewhere in Karnataka, but are we self-sufficient? Are we resource rich with respect to lithium? Definitely not. That's an exception that could be seen in this particular statement. So you see, second statement is incorrect. Now when you see that the second statement is incorrect, automatically you arrive at the answer. Answer for this particular question is 1 and 3. That is, the first and the third statements are right. Right, the first and the third statements are right. So answer for this particular question is C. Answer for this particular question is C. Next. As regards to it is talking about the bondholders and stakeholders. A very, very simple conceptual question. Bondholder, stockholder. Now you know this is more of a debt instrument. This is more of a equity market which is seen to be exist. That's more of a debt instrument. That is more of a debt. This is more of an equity instrument which is seen to be existing. Bondholders are lenders to a company, whereas yes, that is what we see, debt instrument and equity. And when we look at statement 3, it is talking about what? For payment purpose, bondholders are prioritized over stockholders. Definitely yes, that is why you see the stockholders aspect is more risky. The statement 1 states. So in this context, when you look at 37, both the statements are explaining. So answer for this particular question is what? Answer for this particular question is A, that both the statements are explaining the statement 1, right? So answer for this bondholder and stockholder, it is A. Next question. Talking about the Indian accounts, the equity options here. Now straight away, look at the third statement, where we see that there is no regulatory body either to warn small investors about the risk of option trading or to act on unregistered financial advisors. Now what is SEBI doing? Now SEBI is a regulatory body which actually looks into it. Right? Some ambit of it will also function with respect to Competition Commission. So in this context, what happens is straight away the third statement is incorrect. Now when you see the third statement goes off, when third statement goes off, automatically answer is what? You're only remaining with option A, where the first and the second statements are right. Next. When you look at 39th question, it is talking about circular economy. And here when you look at 39th question, circular economy reduces the greenhouse gases. It reduces the use of raw materials. Definitely when it is reducing the use of raw materials, it is reducing the greenhouse gases. And reduces the waste, and when it is reducing the waste, it is talking about reducing the greenhouse gases. So that means what? Statement 2 is right, statement 3 is right, and both statement 2 and statement 3 are explaining statement 1. So in this question, answer is what? Option A. That is for circular economy, it is option A. Next. When you look at 40th question, again if you observe the nature of the questioning in economy, it's pure conceptual. It's pure conceptual. Now gone are those days where they are categorically focusing on current affairs in the context of economy, because we have a sort of misconception which is existing there. Now when we look at capital receipts create a liability, borrowing and disinvestment are capital, interest received is a liability. Definitely interest received is not a liability which is observed here. So when you eliminate third statement again, you see, you arrive at the answer. It is option A, where it is only 1 and 2 are right. Now the similar pattern where if you are able to eliminate one statement, or you will be arriving at the answer, similar pattern could also be seen in 2022 economy questions. Very same pattern. I would not say similar, it is same. In 2022 economy question paper also, in that economy paper, economy questions also, you could see that if you are able to eliminate one statement among 3, you are able to arrive at the answer. So when you observe this 40th question, it is with respect to option A, that is on the capital receipts, borrowings and the interest. Next. In the context of NATO. Now when you look at this context of NATO, we see that Northern Macedonia, Sweden happens to be one of the most recent countries which have joined, and you see Croatia and Bulgaria are part of it. So when you look at 41st, it is only 4 which are correct among this. When you look at 41st, it is only 4 which are correct among this particular 6 statements. So answer for the NATO wala question is, it is option B, where only 4. Next. Again, very tricky question in the context of mapping. But if you are able to understand the aspects of the presence of Andes mountain somewhere over this particular stretch, right? Last year we had a question on Andes. We had a question on mountainous structures last year with respect to the matching of 3 column. Now if you understand this expanse of the Andes along the South American region, you see answer for this again is with respect to 4 countries alone. That is in the context of the 4 countries with respect to the Andes which is spread. Next. Now when you look at how many of them does the equator pass through. Now when you look at this question with respect to equator passing through, you see that none of these lakes pass through the equator. None of these lakes, the equator passes. Now I would say these questions are a kind of risky questions. I would say this is more of a risky question that is existing. If you wish to attempt, you can. If you wish to leave, you can. Right? But it's risky to attempt unless and until you know it. If you don't know, I would definitely suggest you to leave such questions. Now in that answer for 43rd, it is option B with respect to Lake Tanganyika. Next. Again, the most expected topic, even in the priority list that I had given with respect to turmeric, because we had National Turmeric Board which has established, which is an executive organization which is exist. Now you see, turmeric, India is the largest, over 70% of the global production is from India, so largest producer and exporter. More than 30 varieties of turmeric are grown. Yes, you see, especially from the regions of Tamil Nadu, from the regions of Maharashtra, from the regions of Karnataka. That is what is the aspect. So when you look at the largest producer of turmeric in India, it is Maharashtra. In fact, they have given it in the order. So you see that all the 3 statements are right, and answer for this turmeric, it is option D. Answer for this turmeric, it is option D. Next. Again a beautiful conceptual question from the physical geography. Now here, straight away, very simple from your NCERT based question, you would see that all the 3 statements in this are right with respect to the continental drift, phenomena of Alfred Wegener's continental drift. The option for this continental drift is, it is C. Next. The amount of dust particles in the atmosphere is more in the subtropical areas than equatorial. Definitely yes. Yes, why? Because we see there are more dry winds which are seen to be existing in the subtropical as well as the tropical, because we observe that the subtropical and tropical, because of the high pressure belt which is existing there, it happens to be one of the most driest regions. It happens to be one of the most driest regions, and because of the pressure belt distribution that we see, where we see a descendance of the wind system which is existing there, we observe that the dust particles are more prevalent because of vehement and because of strong dry winds which are existing. Here it is also, what is the statement 2 saying? That subtropical and temperate areas have less dry winds. It is not less dry winds, but in fact it is more dry winds which are seen with respect to this particular question. So statement 2 is incorrect and statement 1 is correct. So you see it is option C. Statement 2 is incorrect and statement 1 is correct. So it is with respect to option C. It is with respect to option C. Next, 47th question. Again a question on isotherms. In 2024 we had a similar question on isotherms. We had a similar question on isotherms. In fact, I would say the statement 1 was the exact statement last year in 2024 which was asked. It was more of a 2 statement based question. Here we have reasoning and assertion kind of question which is existing. Now you see both the statements are right and statement 2 happens to be the reason for statement 1, because it's a pure operation of the concept of specific heat, and we definitely know that the specific heat of water is more than the specific heat of land, and all of this temperature contrast would exist, and whenever we see this temperature contrast, accordingly we have the isotherms being bending accordingly with either towards the poles or either towards the equator. So answer for this 47th question is A. Answer for this 47th question, a question on isotherms, is A. Next, in the context of effect of water on rocks, chalk is known as very permeable whereas clay is quite. Now here you have to understand, they have tested the context of permeability and its relation with porosity. Now you please be very, very clear that both are not interlinked phenomena which are existing. That means something which is more permeable need not be porous. Something which is porous need not be permeable. So in that context, on that basis, they have gone for this particular questioning. You observe the chalk is porous and hence can absorb. Clay is not at all porous. Definitely, it's an extreme statement that we observe. So in this context, you see only one of the statement 2 and 3 is correct, and that explains statement 1. Statement 2 is explaining statement 1, but definitely statement 3 is not correct. So in that context, what do you observe? Answer for 48th question with respect to the chalk and clay, it is option C. Next, 49th question. Now here, again, a small point of consideration, that without the atmosphere, temperature would be below freezing point everywhere on the earth's surface. Now when we see this, without atmosphere we see approximate range of minus 18 degrees is what is the anticipation. Now in fact some literature says it is not everywhere, but some literature says, because the problem in this particular statement is coming from this word everywhere, right? Now in general understanding, if you don't consider too much of that and if you take a general understanding, definitely yes, first statement will also be right. But if you think that not everywhere, it could be some exception somewhere existing, then the first statement would go incorrect. Now in that context, I would have 2 answers being present for this question of the atmosphere, the freezing point, because anyway there is no doubt with respect to second statement and third statement. Basic greenhouse gas effect and basic entrapment. And in fact, if I have to tell you, a question could be seen last year in 2024 with respect to the solar radiations and terrestrial radiations. The background story of terrestrial radiations is what you observe in this particular question. Now that is the beauty of UPSC, where I told you that more than 20 plus questions were there from PYQs. It is in this particular manner that UPSC has traced those particular questions here. Now statement 2 and statement 3 are right, so I would vouch for 2 answers here, considering any of these might be correct with the finalization by UPSC. Either it could be option C, where 1, 2 and 3 are right, or either it could be option D, where only 2 and 3 is right. Right? It could be either C or D. Now that is little bit of consideration that you will have to understand. So option for this particular question could be either C or D. Either it is C or D, subjected to the finalization by UPSC. Next, 50th question, Rashtriya Gokul Mission. Now anyway, when you look at both the statements, it definitely talks about the indigenous breeds. So both the statements are correct statements, and answer for this particular question, Rashtriya Gokul Mission. Rashtriya Gokul Mission, answer for this is option C, where both 1 and 2 are correct. Option for this is both 1 and 2 are correct. That is with respect to 50th question, that is Rashtriya Gokul Mission. Next question, that is 51st. Now when you look at this particular question, it is talking about panchayats, and with respect to the intermediate level, it is not present in all the states because you have a criteria of population with respect to the intermediate states. Now apart from that, you see that eligible at a person should attain the age of 30 years. The age criteria is not 30 in the context of the elections to panchayat, that is 21. Then the chief minister, again that's an incorrect statement. Here you, next question, that is, it is talking about panchayats, and with respect to the intermediate level, it is not present in all the states because you have a criteria of population with respect to the intermediate states. Now apart from that, you see that eligible at a person should attain the age of 30 years. The age criteria is not 30 in the context of the elections to panchayat, that is 21. Then the chief minister, again that's an incorrect statement. Here you have to be very careful. They are asking for not correct statements, and when you look at not correct statements here, answer for this is all 3 are incorrect statements. That is, answer for this is D. First statement is incorrect, second statement is incorrect, and the third statement is incorrect. So option for this is D. Next, 52nd question. It is a question with respect to BIMSTEC. It is a region which is having 7 member countries. Yes, definitely. Right? It came into the existence not with Dhaka. No. Then they are not the founding. So statement 2 and statement 3 are incorrect. But when it comes to statement 2 and statement 3 being incorrect, I am left with 1 and 4 and 1 only. Now here again, some of the information states that India is leading the tourism as a subsector. Right? India is leading the tourism as a subsector. Some of the states say that, some of the sources say that this is right. So in that context, answer for this could be 1 and 4 being right, that is C. And some sources say that this is being led by Nepal, or this is being led by Thailand, some other country. Now in that context, so answer for this is D. So with respect to this particular question, we would decide to go with 2 particular options, that is either option C or option D. But more probability is that both the statements are right, that is option 1 and option 4 are correct statements. So in that context, the answer for this could be C, but we would also see with respect to the variability of the sources that is existing, we could consider either C or D. Next, with respect to the Gandhi Peace Prize, it is Prime Minister, Chief Justice and Leader of Opposition. So answer for this is 2, 3, 4. So answer for this is option C. Gandhi Peace Prize, that is answer C, that is 2, 3, 4 are correct. Next, 54th question with respect to Gagan. Now here it's talking about accuracy, yes. Air traffic management, yes. But when you look at this, it is not only for aviation. It is not only for aviation. So if you are able to eliminate third statement and you know that second statement is right and first statement is right, so answer for 54th is D. Answer for 54th is D. Next, that is with respect to question on Gagan. Next, 55th question. Now when we look at 55th question, its first statement is right, the second statement is incorrect with respect to US and UK signing the Declaration of Inclusive and Sustainable AI. And in that context, with respect to 55, option is A. With respect to 55, that is the AI Action Summit, the answer is A. Next, 56th question. With respect to international years, this is completely an unexpected question from the side of UPSC because it's extremely factual and we observe such kind of questions in some other examinations, maybe in state services exams, but in the context of UPSC, a sudden surprise which can be seen, and surprisingly you see that all the 4 years are right here. Surprisingly you see all the 4 years are right, so answer for this particular years wala question, international years wala question, it is option D, right? So UPSC is known for certain surprises at certain points like this. Next again, BRICS. Now 16th BRICS with respect to Russia, that is Kazan Declaration, that's what we see in the context of BRICS. Now here with respect to Indonesia, 57, with respect to Indonesia becoming a full member, yes, it has become a full member of BRICS recent, right? Now here you have to understand we have expanded the BRICS membership up to 10. Right, but out of this 10, what happened is Saudi Arabia is yet to take the decision, and what we observe is this, the recent joinee into the BRICS is Indonesia. So out of this 10, we have 9 who have taken the membership and Indonesia, so totally 10, but Indonesia happens to be the 11th member which has been invited to the BRICS, right? So 1 and 2 are right. Now when we look at the theme of the 16 BRICS was strengthening multiculturalism. Here, I don't know why UPSC went to such a specificity here. It is not multiculturalism, but it is multilateralism. That's the only difference that is seen with respect to the theme. Strengthening multilateralism, not multiculturalism. So in that context, option 3 is incorrect. Now when option 3 is incorrect, the answer for this is A. So the answer for BRICS question is A, that is first statement is right, second statement is right, but the third statement, when it comes to the theme, it is incorrect. Next, it's a question on Lokpal, a long pending question, and finally you see UPSC asking a question on Lokpal. Now in 58th, except the third statement, all other statements are incorrect. Now when you see, except the third statement, all other statements are incorrect. So it is only the third statement. So answer for this 58th question, that is Lokpal. Now when I am referring 58th, whatever the order is with respect to set B. Whatever the order is with respect to set B, I am not talking about sets here. I am only saying that the keyword and the respective answer for Lokpal question, it is option A, which is the right answer. Next, 59th question with respect to Coco. Right, this is for the first time that happened, first Coco World Cup, which definitely took place in Delhi. Yes, first statement is right. But here you see, India beating Nepal in both men and women is correct. But when you look at the scores, right, when you look at the scores, UPSC played upon this factual dimension here. So you see statement 2 is incorrect, statement 3 is incorrect, so answer for this is only 1. So for Coco World Cup, answer is option A. For Coco World Cup, answer is option A. Next, much expected question from the side of the sports, that is chess. You definitely know with respect to Gukesh, but the opponent is not correct. Now here Abhimanyu Mishra happens to be the youngest, so answer for this 60th question is option B. So that is in the context of the chess question, option is B. Next, when you look at 61st question, again a very simple question. As I keep talking about these sentences of approximation are mostly correct in the context of UPSC as a trick when we were discussing in HR. So we see answer for this rare earth metals is option A, where statement 2 is explaining, or statement 2 becomes the reason for statement 1. Next, when you look at this particular question, it is with respect to creating the National Railway Plan. This is an incorrect statement. Kavach, again an incorrect statement, but Kavach with respect to tracks, yes, it's more of an indigenous system which is observed. So when you look at this particular question on railways and Kavach, third statement is incorrect. Sorry, they are asking for not correct, sorry. Third statement is right, but 1 and 2 is incorrect. So when it is not correct, they are only talking about 1 and 2. So answer for this railways here, answer for this railways question is option A, right? Third statement is right, but the other two statements are incorrect, and they are asking for incorrect statements. Now here, they are talking about the microgravity experimentation, microgravity research. Now when you look at this microgravity research wala question, you see that Axiom 4, SpaceX and Gaganyaan, all the three are going to provide an opportunity for you to go for this microgravity research. So 63rd question in the context of set B and in the context of space based question, answer for this space based question is with respect to yes, answer for this space based question is option C. All the three are correct. Next, 64th question again with respect to defense, much expected, right? With respect to defense, answer is B. Only two are right. With respect to this Dornier 228 IL 76, it is with respect to option B. Next, 65th question again, cloud seeding, a phenomena of cloud seeding which is seen in the context of the case study of Dubai that has been discussed. So you see, answer for this is silver iodide and potassium iodide, and you also have with respect to dry ice also sometimes being used, the common salt NaCl is also being used with respect to artificial rain and with respect to cloud seeding, because these are going to provide the hygroscopic nuclei which is enabling the condensation process. So in 65th, answer is option A. Next, with respect to pardoning powers, the exercise is subjected to limited judicial review. Yes, that subjected to limited judicial review. Can exercise without the advice? No, because we definitely know that according to the office of president, the constitutional discretionary powers are absent, but the situational discretionary is present at times. That's more of situational, but whereas the constitutional discretionary powers are completely absent in the context of president. So always binding by the advice of the Council of Ministers and dependent upon the advice of the Council of Ministers. The second statement is incorrect and the first statement is right. So answer for this pardoning powers question is option A. Right? Next. Now, when you look at this particular question on dissolution, right, 67th, that is in the context of dissolution, the speaker shall vacate, shall not vacate. Yes, this is the right statement. That is the right statement. When you look at second statement, the member of the house on being elected as speaker shall resign from the political party immediately. No, this is not mentioned in the constitution. That's nothing to do with the constitution. So second statement is incorrect. You remove second statement, you arrive at the answer. Answer is option C with respect to the speaker question here. Answer is option C. It's a simple question, but it is only that it is taking a lot of time for you to read. Right? Next. See, this is again with respect to the defection, with respect to anti-defection here, has become subject to disqualification under 10th schedule, the president becomes accordance with the opinion. It is not the president who is the adjudicating authority in anti-defection. Because when we look at disqualifications, we see that disqualification happens in the context of Article 102(1). Apart from that, we also have the 10th schedule. Here the adjudicating authority is somewhere the president, but whereas the adjudicating authority of the disqualifications on the basis of defection, that is specified with respect to 10th schedule, 52nd amendment, 91st amendment, that is with respect to speaker. So it is not the president there. So first statement is incorrect. But when you look at second statement, there is no mention of the word political party. There is a word of political party which is mentioned. So second statement is also incorrect. So answer for this particular question is both 1 and 2 are incorrect. That is option D with respect to anti-defection. With respect to anti-defection, it is D, neither 1 nor 2. Next. State governments have no power for making, no. Now in fact you have to understand this is a question which is repeated from 2019 PYQ, where you see that in the context of minerals we have two, one is the major, the other one is the minor minerals like sand, others. Major is in the ambit of center, whereas the minor is in the ambit of state. So first statement is incorrect. Now when you look at first statement is incorrect, so automatically answer is going to be D. So answer for this minor minerals wala question is, it is option D. Next. When you look at 70th question, it's talking about nature's restoration law. Answer is European Union without any thought. Any given day you have to understand nature's restoration law. You see, European Union is more advanced when it comes to digital security, cyber security, when it comes to the environmental aspects, the green technology, the carbon markets. It's more dominant, it's more predominant. So in the context of sustainability phenomena, you have to understand it is European Union. So nature's restoration law, it is option A, that is European Union. Next. Again, a beautiful question from the side of economy, right? Completely unexpected, because never is that we see numbers. Only some time back, somewhere in 2020, we had seen one particular question with respect to the money aggregates, that is M0. Some amount is withdrawn, is there any change in M0 or not? That was a kind of question, little bit of calculation, but definitely not this much. Now here they are saying that the revenue expenditure is 80,000. And the revenue receipts are 60,000, and the government's borrowings are 10,000, and the interest payments are 6,000. Now when you see revenue deficit, it is this minus this, it is 20, so yes. Now when you see fiscal deficit, it is nothing but borrowings, so it is 10k. Now when you see primary deficit, it is this minus this, which is 4,000, that is. So in this context, we see all the three statements are right, so answer for this is option D. If you just knew basic conceptual understanding, this is easy, right? I would say this is such a beautiful question, and I would say this is a point of relaxation when you're actually solving the question in the exam. Now 72nd question. Now when you look at INSTC, a multimodal transportation corridor which will connect. Now, it is definitely not B and C. Now, we are left with A and B. Now, in fact, what do we observe is many people are speculating on D, but many people are speculating on A. But the simple logic here that you will have to remember, when you look at option A is more inclusive. Option A is more inclusive with respect to those parties of INSTC. And not only that, it's more inclusive with respect to those parties of INSTC, but you see that Iran happens to be one of those areas which is very, very important. And in that context, we had some kind of development with respect to Chabahar port in the context of Iran. And you see, if we had to take a decision with respect to the key for this particular question, we have decided that it is option A with respect to INSTC question. It is option A with respect to INSTC question, undoubtedly, right? But because that's more comprehensive, it's talking about Central Asia because we have certain Central Asian countries being present in INSTC. So it is option A with respect to INSTC. Next, 73rd question. Now you look at this, it's talking about ethanol producers and it is saying that Brazil is producing more than America. But you have to understand, USA is the largest producer of ethanol. Forget about the sources, forget about what is the raw material that's being put forth in the context of the production of ethanol. But you have to definitely understand USA is the largest producer of ethanol. And in that context, what happens is the statement 1 goes incorrect. Now when statement 1 goes incorrect, automatically you arrive at option D with respect to this particular ethanol wala question. Now you don't need to be worried, you don't need to be boggled about the second statement. Here if you can understand that USA is the largest producer of ethanol, you arrive at the answer, that is option D. Next, it's a question with respect to the World Bank warned that India could become one of the first place where wet bulb temperature routinely exceeds 35 degrees. Which of the following statement best reflects the implication of the above said report? Now here, what's happening when I was observing certain understandings and certain extensions of this particular question, what were they considering? They were considering the report. But here what should we consider? We should consider the implications of the report. It is not the report but the implications of the report which have to be considered is what is my strong belief. And when we look at this, what are they saying? It is simply saying that there is an increase in temperature. And when we say that there is an increase in temperature, forget about wet bulb, forget about 35 degrees, it's only increase in temperature. When we say increase in temperature, automatically what happens? We would see that there are extreme climatic conditions which are seen to be experienced. So it is option 1. Extreme climatic conditions, because forget about, I would say any part of India will most likely experience flooding, will most likely experience cyclones, will most likely experience droughts. And I would say the statement is more consistent. What is the observation with respect to the statement being consistent? Here is the peninsular India and the tropical cyclones, it's more consistent. So implications, it is not the report which it is talking about. So first statement is right. And the survival of the animals including humans will be affected as shedding of their body heat through perspiration becomes difficult. Right? That's more of a adaptive mechanism which is seen, and we see the temperature increasing. Yes, both the statements are right. So answer for this particular question is, it is option C. It is option C. Next, that is with respect to the wet bulb temperature, option is C. Again, a beautiful question. It's saying that the fiscal deficit is 50,000 rupees and it is having non-debt creating capital is 10,000 rupees and the interest liability it has is 1500 crore rupees. Now here the point that you have to understand is what some people would do. Some people would club 50 plus 10 minus 1500, but that is not the case, because you have to understand as part of fiscal deficit we already had NCC, that is non-debt creating capital. Now when we already had this non-debt creating capital NDCC, so that technically means this 10k is already part of this 50k. And when we see this 10k is already part of this 50k, and what is existing here is 1500, so all that you will have to do is subtract between 50k and 1500k. Now when we see 50k and 1500k, so answer is going to be 48,500 crores is what is observed in the context of this particular question. Now in fact, the clue for this is already given in the previous question where we solved about revenue deficit, fiscal deficit and primary deficit. So answer is 48,500 with respect to this particular question. Next, it's a question on Finance Commission. Now when we see that it's a question on 15th Finance Commission, straight away look at second statement, it is not 45%. The devolution previously it was 42% in 14th Finance Commission. This 42% became 41% in 15th Finance Commission, saying that the additional 1% is for the development of certain regions. And when we see that, so automatically the statement 2 is going to be incorrect. Now when statement 2 is incorrect, you arrive at the answer, that is option C. That is option C for 15th Finance Commission, that is option C which is present. Next. 77th question, that is in the context of IBRD. It provides loans, yes. It works single-handedly, because you have to understand World Bank is for poverty reduction, no doubt. And World Bank is what? It is a composite entity which is having 5 different organizations, and IBRD is one part of World Bank. It is not single-handedly working there. So eliminate second statement. When you eliminate second statement, you arrive at the answer, that is 1 and 3. It was established to help Europe rebuild. The name itself has a reconstruction, rebuild. So 1 and 3 are correct. So answer for IBRD is C, where 1 and 3 are correct statements. Next. RTGS and NEFT. Now here, very practical question, right? And again, tough question, I would say, not easy, tricky. It demanded definite clarity on it. You have to understand here in 78th question, it's only the first statement which is correct, whereas the other 2 are not. It's only the first statement which is correct, whereas the other 2 are not. So answer for this question, RTGS and NEFT, it is option A, which is first statement being right and other not. Now here again UPI, very much repeated. In this, it is France, Singapore, right, and UAE. So automatically answer is what? Only 3. Automatically answer is what? Only 3. So answer for this UPI is option B. Answer for this UPI is option B, where 3 countries have adopted, which are present in this. In fact, we have more than 6 countries which have adopted UPI of India, but 3 are present in this. Next. PM Surya Ghar Muft Bijli Yojana. Now when you look at this PM Surya Ghar Muft Bijli Yojana, all the 3 statements are right. All the 3 statements are right, straight away picked up from the objectives of the statement of the program. So the answer for this is option D. It is with respect to expanding the rooftop. Because we had an objective of 100 gigawatts from the side of the solar and overall 175 gigawatts from the side of renewable. And in that we had an objective of expanding the rooftop solar up to 40 gigawatts. So in that context, but at present we are around at 10 gigawatts. So we wanted to look at expanding, and we had a separate program called PM Surya Ghar Muft Bijli Yojana, where we see 4 statements are, sorry, 3 statements, all the 3 statements are right. So answer for this is option D. Next, 81st question. Now here when we look at 81st question, can amend a central act? Yes. Can come into effect from a back date? So 1 and 3 undoubtedly they are right. Right? 1 and 3 undoubtedly they are right. Now here the question is with respect to, can an ordinance abridge a fundamental right? Right? Can an ordinance abridge a fundamental right? In that context it is no. So answer for 81st is what? It is C. Only 1 and 3 statements are right. It is with respect to the ordinance question. It is 1 and 3 are right, not the second statement. Next, a beautiful question. I would say it's more of a composite question here. When you look at this, all the 3 statements are right. That is the statement about Arunachal, the statement about Nagaland, and the statement about Tripura. All the statements are right. So answer for 82nd, it is option C. That is the question on the Nagaland, the question on Tripura, question on Arunachal Pradesh. Option is C. Right. Next, 83rd. It's with respect to, as usual, federal institutions. Constitution of India, they are asking about constitutional body. It is only interstate council, not the national security, not the zonal, because zonal, anyway it is statutory. Answer is only 1. So answer is option A. That is for 83rd question. Answer is option A with respect to the constitutional bodies. Next, again, the Constitution of India explicitly mentions that in certain spheres the governor of a state acts in or her own discretion. Yes, because what is the difference with respect to the discretionary powers of governor and the president? We observe that in the context of constitutional discretion is present with governor, but it is not present with president. But whereas in the context of the situational discretion, it is present for both the entities. It is present for both the entities. When we look at the comparative chart that we have given in high impact revision notes, we see it is something like this. And in that context, we see it is categorical with respect to the, or it is explicit. For example, when you look at Article 164, or when you look at Article 244, or when you look at Article 200, 201, right, Article 356, that's a kind of discretion. Right, that's a kind of discretion which is present on the side of the governor. Now, when we look at the second statement, the President of India can of his or her own reserve a bill by a state legislature for his or her consideration without it being forwarded by the governor of the state concerned. Now, recently we see there was a lot of conflict with respect to Supreme Court giving certain directions with respect to passing of a bill, and in that context, we see do we hear about, is it a case where president can reserve a bill? Now, on the face of it, I say the statement is incorrect, right? On the face of it, the statement appears incorrect, but my question could be that what is the case in the context of emergency? When we see a case of financial emergency, when we see a case of national emergency, that is 352 and 360, and at times when we look at Article 356, in the context of the constitutional machinery, there is some kind of dysfunctionality that is existing. Now, in that context, can president look at this? Now, that is one question mark which we will have to see and we will have to wait. But for now, the statement could be considered as incorrect and answer is A, right? But I'm little skeptical about the second statement, right? But when the team was sitting and discussing upon this, right, the majority was with respect to the second statement being incorrect. But we will have to wait and watch by understanding the tendencies of how UPSC is preparing the keys. We will have to wait and watch. So, but for now, the answer for 84th question is only the first statement is right, that is option A. Next, 85th, all the statements are right. DBSP, duties, rights. So, answer for this is option C. Answer for this particular question, 85th question, it is option C. All the three statements are correct statements. Next, it's a question with respect to schedule area. Now, when you look at question with respect to schedule area, where the state loses its executive power in such areas, because definitely not, but the union government can take over the total administration of such areas under certain circumstances on the recommendation of the governor. Now again, this particular statement people have speculated upon saying that this is also incorrect, but our finalization with respect to this particular dimension could be that this is a right statement where at some instances they can undertake. So in that context, answer for this particular question is B. Right, on the basis of the recommendations of the governor, maybe it could, the union government can take over the total administration. So in that context, now here, if you speculate upon these aspects of total administration, now I would say that you need not again get into so much of specificities here. So answer for 86th question is B. Next, 87. They have interchanged here, right? Definitely it is, they have interchanged a lot of organizations. So answer for this, all the three matchings are incorrect. So answer for this, boards, because most of them are statutory organization. Answer for this is none of them are matched correctly. None of them are matched correctly, right? 88th question. Now here when it comes to 88th question, they are asking about the ratification from the side of the state as well. Ratification from the side of the state as well with respect to amendments. That means it should be amending some federal aspect. It should be amending some federal aspect. So when you look at 7th schedule, yes. Executive power of the state, yes. Now when you look at the conditions of the governor's office, now conditions of the governor's office, no. Right? Now when you look at the conditions of the governor's office, no, it can be amended by the parliament straight away. So answer for this particular question is A. That means for 7th and the executive power of the state, which is having a more impact on the federal balance and federal aspect, it should be 1 and 2, but whereas the third statement could be with respect to conditions of the governor's office, could be done directly by the parliament. So answer is A. Next, 90th question. Production of crude oil, refining, storage and distribution of marketing and sale, production of natural gas. Now Petroleum and Natural Gas Regulatory Board. Now again, this is an extension from 2019 PYQ. In 2019 we had a statement saying that PNGRB is the first regulatory body. That was the question, if I remember, in 2019. So just an extension of that particular question, you have to understand that PNGRB does not look into production of crude oil, does not look into production of natural gas. Right? In fact, we have the Directorate of Hydrocarbons, which actually looks into the production of crude oil and natural gas. It's not PNGRB. So in that context, what happens? You're left only with the two statements. So in this, answer is only 2. The answer for this particular question, 90th question, is option B. Answer for this 90th question is option B. Only 2 statements are right. Other 2 statements, the production aspect is not taken care by PNGRB. It is only looking into the marketing, the petroleum products, the sale, the refining. In fact, the downstream activities which are seen to be existing is looked after by PNGRB. So almost we have finished 90 questions. We are left with last 10. Now my simple suggestion could be that whoever is scoring above 80, please start your mains preparation right away. Please start your mains preparation right away, because anticipation could definitely be that in 2023 when you look at the cutoff, and in 2024 when you look at the cutoff. In 2023, what do you observe? You see that the cutoff was around 75. In 2024, the cutoff was around 87. Now, if I have to fix the cutoff of 2025, the cutoff of 2025 would definitely be less than 2024, but more than 2023. This is the bracket that I can give you. And if you still pressurize me to say some exact figure, I would maybe go with 83 plus or minus 2. I would go with 83 plus or minus 2 with respect to this particular question, because you have to understand one dynamic this year is CSAT is tough. Now again people say CSAT is easy. No, CSAT has been tough. Why? Because again with respect to the disproportionate number of questions from number systems, right? So you would have the CSAT discussion, the detailed key, because it is taking some time. Tomorrow, which is going to be discussed by Surya Teja sir, who is an IFOS officer, and you also see him getting a civil services rank this year as well. He would discuss the CSAT solutions. So CSAT dynamic has been tough. GS tricky and tough. So definitely less than 24, but slightly more than 23. So my anticipation could be somewhere around 83 plus or minus 2. That could be with respect to the cutoff analysis, but those are scoring above 80, I would say straight away start your mains preparation. We hardly have 80 days for mains, because mains is on 22nd August. Today we are already 26th. So here 5 days, there again. So it is hardly 80 days. So in that context, to maximize your score there, those are scoring above 80 straight away start. Next, coming to the 91st question, the sedition. This is with respect to the salt law Dundee, right? Publicly violating the salt law. Next, dancing girl, bronze, no doubt at all in this, right? Simpler questions towards the end, right? Now in this context, the legal defense was provided by Madan Mohan Malviya and Krishnakant, right? That is option B with respect to this particular question of legal defense. Next, with respect to Gandhiji, it is Pune Pact, that is option A, Harijans Upliftment, Pune Pact, Ambedkar. Next, with respect to Portuguese, here what do we observe? All the three, because most of the plantation crops have been introduced by Portuguese. Most of the plantation crops have been introduced by Portuguese. So you see, all the three are introduced by Portuguese here. So answer is papaya, pineapple, guava being introduced. So answer is option C. Next, 96. Now, this is a tough question. I would definitely suggest, if you're not aware, if you're not accurate, I would say please leave this question. But otherwise, if you're considerate here, and if you talk about including overseas territory here, it is with respect to what? How many of the above countries have more than 4 time zones? It is 4. More than 4, it is 4. Brazil has exactly 4. But others, considering about other territories also, it is with respect to 4. More than 4, it is only 4 countries which has this. Right? So answer for this particular question, it is B. Right? Next. Again, a question. This is a right statement, but they have interchanged this. So answer is A only. Right? Answer is 1 only, that is A for this particular question on international date line. Next, 98th question, self-respect movement by E. Ramaswamy Nayakar. Yes, that's a simple question again, straightforward, simply lifted from the PYQs. Next, very much in use, Chile lithium, Indonesia with respect to nickel, and Botswana with respect to diamond. These are some of the largest reserves, largest producers with respect to this. So all the 3 statements are right here. All the 3 statements are right with respect to Botswana, Chile and Indonesia. So answer is 3. Now the last question. Here what happened is they have interchanged the region and the country, so none of these are right. They have interchanged the region and the country, and none of these are right. So when you look at this particular question, it is option D. So when you look at the overall analysis and overall key, it is tough, tricky, uniform distribution of the subjects made it tough and tricky. And in that context, again I am repeating and reiterating that those who are scoring above 80 should start your mains preparation. Now, coming to the mains preparation, when you observe, we see that all that you will have to understand is you should maximize in the minimum time. Now, for you to have this approach of maximizing in the minimum time, R.C.Reddy IAS Study Circle has come up with, again, one of the very as we have discussed the detailed analysis of the key. Now my suggestion would be that those who are scoring above 80 plus, right, those who are scoring above 80 plus, I would definitely suggest you to start your mains preparation. Even if you are scoring around 75 to 80, I would say start and be ready. Because one observation is that UPSC has its own key, its own considerations, and in that context there could be a variation of 2-3 questions which is generally observed. So in that context, start off your mains preparation. And when I say starting mains preparation, in view of mains preparation and to simplify it, R.C.Reddy IAS Study Circle is again back with its one of the most successful programs for mains examination, that is strategic revision for mains. Now if I have to tell you the history of this program, it's 3 years old program, and we have been doing this for last 2 years. And if I have to tell you the success stories of strategic revision program in the previous years, the strategic revision program for mains examination 2023, we had 8 rankers coming from that. And strategic revision program for mains 2024 and value addition program for mains 2024, we had 10 rankers coming from that. With that confidence, again we are back with strategic revision for mains examination 2025. Now here, I would say this is a kind of one-stop solution to all of those people who are aiming to write the mains and who are ready to write the mains and who are clearing the prelims to write mains in 2025. As we know, mains is on 22nd August and roughly 80 around days remaining for your mains examination. And at this context, you can't run around maybe revision classes somewhere, maybe mentorship somewhere, maybe accountability somewhere, maybe test series somewhere, maybe answer writing somewhere, maybe value addition somewhere. You can't keep running around because the time is the most valuable thing at this moment. So in view of all of this, we are coming up with strategic revision for mains for 2025. And when we look at the strategic revision for mains 2025, we have 2 dimensions and 2 components. One aspect is the revision classes, where we would revise whole of your mains syllabus within 50 days, which would include essay, GS1, GS2, GS3, GS4. And in this context, what all will we be doing? We would have a precise notes. We would have a value addition handouts which are given. We have standard templates which are provided to the themes which are constantly repeated in the exam. And more than anything, we have the subject specific structures for answer writing. We have subject specific structures for answer writing. That's one dimension. Apart from that, once you are done with your revision classes, along with the revision classes, we have the test series which is conducted, and this is very, very strategically planned, where we have 10 mini sectional tests. Along with 10 mini sectional tests, we have 5 full length tests, and along with 5 full length tests, we have 5 tests of simulation. And the beauty of it is you would be finishing the revision classes along with test series with a time period where at least 2 weeks before the examination. That means you are finishing your revision, you are writing your mini sectional, you are writing your full length, you are writing your simulation. All this is over 2 weeks before the examination. And when it is over 2 weeks before the examination, all the remaining 2 weeks before the examination is only meant for self-study, is only meant for execution, is only meant for consolidation, is only meant for revision. And in this context, you also have to understand, we are going to provide mentorship, that means one-to-one hand-holding process in the context of improvements. Because what generally happens, when we observe the students who are repeatedly writing mains but unable to clear mains, who are going to interview but unable to clear interview because or unable to get into the final list because of comparatively lower scores in mains, for all of those students, I would definitely suggest strategic revision for mains 2025 is definitely an enhancer. It would definitely enhance your score. It would definitely improve your strategy. It would definitely improve your value addition. It would definitely improve your structure. It would more than anything improve your time management and approach. And in that context, who all can avail the strategic revision program for mains 2025? Those people who are attempting mains in 2025 can definitely get into this. And those people who have already given interview in 2024 or in 2023 or in 2022 but are unable to qualify mains after giving your interview, and if you qualify prelims for 2025 and if you are giving mains in 2025, I would highly recommend to those candidates to join this particular program. And when I would highly recommend to those candidates to join this program in this context, the fundamental aspect that you will have to remember is you have everything at one place. Accountability is at one place, revision is at one place, strategy is at one place, value addition is at one place, notes is at one place, consolidation is at one place, test series is at one place, evaluation is at one place, improvement is at one place, and more than anything the hand holding process is at one place. And in this context we are going to save time. And in case, I would definitely wish all those who are watching this qualify prelims examination, in case if some candidates are unable to make it to the list this year, we also have a program which is designed for those candidates called Mission Mains 2026. And when we say this Mission Mains 2026, who are eligible for this, or I would say whom I would suggest, I would say those who are targeting mains 2026, those who are targeting mains 2026, and those who have given attempt in 2024 but decided to take break in 2025 and planning to give an attempt in 2026. For these candidates also I would definitely suggest. And when you look at this particular program, we see that initial assessment is what is one aspect that we have here. In initial assessment, what is generally done? We go for the SWOT analysis of the candidate, and all of this analysis is customized. That means the mentor and the respective candidate analysis is done, and the SWOT analysis is in detail and it is customized. And once this initial assessment of a candidate is done, then we have the revision classes where you would revise whole of your essay, GS1, GS2, GS3, GS4 in 50 days. And as part of this 50 days, you would finish your notes, you would finish your value addition, you would finish your templates, notes, value addition, templates, all of these dimensions would definitely be done within 50 days. And more than anything, subject specific structures is what is going to be given by the respective faculty who is teaching you. And once you finish this revision program, then you have one simulator which is to be attempted. That means initial assessment. After initial assessment, your revision program where you would see a kind of value addition, a kind of improvement, a kind of analysis, a kind of orientation is fundamentally provided. And then we have a simulator which is conducted. And after the simulator is done, after the evaluation of the simulator and after the analysis of the simulator, we have well-spaced test series which is conducted. That means you would see that it is very, very strategic with respect to positioning of each stage. Initial assessment, followed by the revision classes, followed by simulator, followed by test series. And this test series is well spaced. And when I say well spaced, for every paper you would be writing 3 tests, for essay 3, for GS1 3, for GS2 3, for GS3 3, and for GS4 3. You would be categorically writing 3 tests for each paper on an average. And apart from that, you would also be writing one full length simulator after the respective test series. And you will have to understand by the mid of November, you would be finishing and you would be ready for mains. Because here what is generally followed, we have a layer approach: initial revision classes, value addition, testing, again the strategy, again the mentorship, again the accountability when the test series is going on, and then again we have full length simulator where we see by November mid you would be finishing your mains. You would be ready with your mains, you would be ready with your answer writing, you would be ready with your notes, you would be ready with your structures, you would be ready with your value addition, and you would be ready with what to read, what to revise, what to write, and everything is optimized to a larger extent. And then strategically you know that you would be able to transition to prelims with more confidence after November. That is a program for Mission Mains 2026, that those are aiming for 2026. That means those candidates who could not make it in 25, or those candidates who have taken break and want to continue, and those candidates who have given interview, who want to improve their score. They would have been an interview candidate in 2024 but could not make it to the final list, and they might be falling back because of certain scores in the mains examination. I would definitely recommend to them, because you have a whole lot of accountability system which is reinforced into the process. And you can definitely improve, because value addition could be a problem there, structure could be a problem, the number of points could be a problem, analysis could be a problem, evaluation could be a problem. All of those things are done at one place. And once you have that, those are writing in 2026, taking 2025 as break, this program is highly recommended. Now the question might arise that who is going to teach this particular course? And when we look at both the strategic revision mains 2025 and both mission mains 2026, you see that both of them are going to be handled by the faculty. And who are these faculty? The faculty, some of the faculty who are going to handle are the civil services rankers by themselves. That means they have walked the path, so they know the path. Some civil services rankers who are faculty, and apart from those civil services faculty, you have the civil services rankers, you have those candidates who have reached the stage of interview multiple times. When the candidate has reached the stage of interview multiple times, the candidate would also know that what kind of issues could be existing, what kind of shortcomings could be present, and they are going to handle the course here. And here you have to be noting something here, that when you observe this with respect to the faculty, it's not about knowledge, but it is about translation of knowledge into marks. Because this is what is very, very important when we see mains as an examination, because it is descriptive and it is deciding. And unless and until you have the art of translation of knowledge into marks, which is known by these people who are handling, because these are not known to be subject experts, but these are exam experts. These are exam experts because they have given multiple times, they have qualified multiple times, they have reached and they have seen all the stages multiple times. So they know what to do, what not to do, what to revise, what not to revise, and what to incorporate and what not to incorporate. So that is the dimension which is seen to be existing with respect to this particular program. To know more about it, that who is going to handle which subject, who is going to handle which paper, and what is the schedule with respect to the revision classes, and to know the nitty-gritties of answer writing. We have scheduled the orientation for the program of the strategic revision for mains 2025 and mission mains 2026 on 8th June 2025. Now we have an orientation which is scheduled on 8th June 2025. As you know, the program is starting on 14th June 2025. And as part of the orientation, we would be giving you all the details. And to register to the orientation, to the session of the orientation, to know more details, the link is in the description below. Kindly register, and I would definitely suggest and hope that all of you are writing mains 2025 and kindly start your mains preparation immediately. Thank you.